So if you guys can see the slides, this is the Dangerous Edition Sprint 2 planning. As we look at kind of the overall schedule, we're currently in Sprint 2, which spans 3 weeks. It'll start today and end on February 10th. A couple of notes around Jira. So best practices for your commits into Gerrit, please prefix your commits with the Jira issue number. So this is an example of what this would look like. This is good to provide kind of association between the two, and then of course provide the fixed versions when closing out a Jira issue. Another thing to note is definitely call out any dependencies or blockers you may have as you're going through your planning. Okay.
One question: if one of our tasks span over multiple commits, we just prefix all of them with the task number?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it'll provide the association that it's the same thing. So otherwise, it's kind of hard to see or associate the two. Okay, so we're in the Dangerous Edition Sprint 2. This is, we're in Jira, so hopefully you guys can see this. Do I need to make the screen bigger, smaller? Font?
Fine.
Okay, we will start then. We'll start with Refactor XOS. There's quite a few items. Sapan, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I have some backlog from the previous sprint. This includes the Elk Stack integration ticket and the cleanup of the synchronizer. I've got draft patches of the results, and we'll tweak them over the next day or two and should check them in a couple of days. I have, let's see, I'm sorry, I lost my screen. So we're going to be developing an intermediate language, an intermediate representation to specify our data model and its semantics. So far we've been using Django, but since we intend to accommodate several other formats externally, such as Yang and protobufs, we would like to have this intermediate format that we can use as a hub to translate between these various formats. So you can't use Django because of the mixing of Python code and declarations, which would make it difficult to target this representation as we translate from other formats. And also coming up with this intermediate representation that we intend to represent, that we intend to encode using YAML. We will go through the exercise of taking stock of the span of possible data models that we can represent and the semantics that we have. And so also go through the exercise of documenting and formalizing the type of data modeling that we can do. So that's one ticket. The other ticket related to this subject is refactoring, re-implementing our transformation tools. So we have a set of transformation tools that help generate code based on the data model and annotations to the data model. Right now it works in conjunction with Django, and the idea there will be porting that framework to the new intermediate representation. I also have a third ticket which involves refactoring the synchronizer, of making an editorial pass over the synchronizer core, and also the data model, replacing kludges with more correct implementations. So there was a bit of this in the last sprint, which I got done, and this is going to continue along the same lines. So those are my tickets in this sprint.
So Sapan, you have 25 story points.
That's right, but the investigating the tickets that got carried over from the previous sprint are basically done, so I don't expect to spend any substantial time on those.
Okay, because 5 is essentially a week, right? So you've got 3 weeks plus.
Okay. So I guess all right, I didn't adjust the points. I retained the number of points that we had in the previous ticket, in the previous sprint. Partly, I guess, because I'm not that well versed with Scrum and this process. But if it's appropriate to update the point value to the amount of effort that I expect to expend in this sprint, then I can go ahead and do that. I think they should each be 1 point, probably.
Okay, or if you're closing them out soon. I think the main thing is we've got 3 weeks, so let's make sure that as we're planning for this sprint, that we're scoping the work appropriately.
Yeah, these are going to get knocked off in the next couple of days.
Okay, thanks. Matteo?
Yes. So I'll spend some time during this sprint on deciding and experimenting how to onboard custom views for services and how to auto-generate CRUD views for service models. Apart of that, I'll start working on some helper feature for the XOS GUI, like the bug interceptor means basically to enable a flag to show the bug message in the console or hide them. And we will need to provide a way to extend the dashboard views with custom components that may be required for different services.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, so the first 2 items here, 770 and 665, those are both bugs. Those are expected to take a relatively short amount of time to fix. After that, we have 3 issues that have to do with the XOS Core API. The first one is to use new certificates that Zach built a certificate feature into the framework for us. I think that's going to be an easy one to do. The next 2 are to implement the core client. I'm expecting to base that largely off of Chameleon so that it is self-learning. It can learn the API by querying an API method. And then the next one is to implement an abstraction layer on top of the core API. That's a convenience layer for synchronizer implementers so that they can get their foreign key relations resolved automatically by the layer rather than having to reissue additional gRPC requests.
Okay. So David is, I think he dropped off. He said he wasn't going to be able to attend. So what he's doing is he's trying to minimize the container sizes for the mass containers. Right now, with build and execution going on in the same containers because of the Go compilation, it needs a lot more resources, and so the containers are quite a bit larger. So what he wants to do is he's pulling it apart so that build is in its own container and runtime it's in its own container. So you should be able to reduce the size of the runtime containers quite a bit, and so it'll make it faster to push to the head node. And then the next item, investigate compute node as a service. What he's trying to do here is with a compute node as part of Mass is provisioning it, and it's using a Ansible playbook. So he's looking at it. It seems very similar to the synchronizer work. So he's seeing whether it makes sense to build an XOS service around that. And then some cleanup scripts. I think that's it for David. Okay, so Andy?
So my main focus for this sprint is going to be continuation of work that I was doing in the last sprint to integrate the virtual fabric with Cord in a Box. And so there's a number of tasks associated with that here in this sprint. There's the adding the actual virtual switches and getting them configured correctly. There is providing some means of external connectivity for the virtual machines and containers that are created connected to the fabric. So in a full pod we would have vRouter set up, but I haven't got that integrated with Cord in a Box yet, and I think that is maybe still a pretty big chunk to bite off. So I'm looking for some easier way to get to the point where virtual machines and containers can contact the outside world without the full vRouter Quagga setup. Yeah, so that's that one. And so the other, after I get the fabric working for a Cord in a Box, I want to use that as a development platform for adding auto configuration of the fabric to XOS. And so the first bit of that is going to be some modeling work that needs to happen in XOS, adding things like switches and switch ports to the model. So I think the first step there is I need to create a design document about what that's going to look like and get some feedback from the team, probably particularly Scott, but of course everybody else is welcome to weigh in there. The next item, 793, that goes with the previous work of the fabric on Cord in a Box. So until we get the fabric fully modeled and configured by XOS, we need some manual configuration process that that will work for us. And so I've been looking at this Cord Generate tool that I think Sienna has built, and it looks like it is at least will provide us with a fabric configuration that will do the job until we can get the configuration fully integrated with XOS. And the last one for me is, this is just a bug fix. For some reason, the HTTP command that is used, for example, to delete the fabric configuration and reactivate the fabric apps from a Makefile, that's not working anymore. I think I know how to fix it. It's just a matter of doing it. So that's just a little fix. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay, and then Scott?
Yeah, Cord 754, this is to continue some work that I did in the last sprint where I copied the repo tree from headnode to, from devnode to headnode. The way that worked is that it copied it and then it set up some links from legacy directories into that tree so that all of the existing services and other components would continue working. So this here is going to be to update those components to pull directly out of that tree and then deprecate the old directory structure entirely.
Zach?
This goes along with the this Cord 795 parallel build download of Docker images to the build system. This goes along with the build deploy restructuring document. Basically, right now we're building a lot of Docker images sequentially during the build process, and this separates that out and gives an option for every Docker container to either download it from Docker Hub or from another service, or to build it from scratch. The general philosophy is if it was modified in the repo, that repo checked out, then you rebuild it. If it wasn't, just grab it off the internet. But I'd like input on that process. And most of that process can be found described in the build refactoring document.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Pierre?
Yes. This will be my main focus on this sprint. This is a leftover from the previous sprint, but in this sprint we have to make sure that the pseudowire is finally integrated in ONOS. And in the context of this issue, I count also the workaround that we need to do now to make sure that the pseudowire is working, because we have a bug on the DPA switch that are not able to handle the bottom of stack bit. So we need to implement also a workaround. And yeah, that's all.
So one thing to keep in mind, and I don't know if we've agreed on this, right? But we're entering the last feature development sprint on the ONOS side. So
yes,
with the timing of Cord and ONOS, we're picking up 1.9, more than likely, right? And so within the next 3 weeks, there's going to be a feature freeze on the ONOS side.
yeah.
So you're going
But
to
I
have
think
to...
that we need to do is to merge these for ONOS 1.8, right? eCord should use ONOS 1.8.
Okay, and so what we're going to have to do then is we'll have to look at a 1.8 release to support possibly eCord and mCord. I think what we need to understand is towards the latter part of Dangerous Edition, are eCord and mCord moving to the refactored version? Because right now in their roadmap, they are accounting for some dependencies and work that are there. So if Mark and folks are on, maybe we can get a better understanding. Mark, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just don't know what to say. We assume we're going to be working on top of Mysterious Decisions maintenance version or something, correct? That was what we were expecting. And will it be a problem?
No.
I mean, they will keep bumping up 1.18 series if there's 1.83 or something at some point on Cord Mysterious Decision Division 1 or something. We'll point to almost 1.83, 1.84, whatever. That was what we were expecting.
Okay.
I think the only issue here could be that there is a refactoring ongoing on XOS, so service-related stuff may change.
But this is about ONOS, right?
No,
yeah, but
Cord.
if you plan to work on Cord Mysterious Decision,
Well,
something in the model may
that's
change.
the thing we don't understand this way.
well, Mysterious Decision shouldn't have refactoring changes, right? So it should remain stable for eCord. I think what we're hearing is that there is a request to have a revision of Mysterious Decision that would have eCord support. And with the pseudowire dependencies, we're going to have to also cut another version of an ONOS release that is based on 1.8.0, right? So let's monitor that.
Did I hear, though, that my view was that we go back to Mysterious Decision and fix bugs, but adding features to support the next release of eCord sounds very different. And I understand the cyclic problem of eCord trying to keep pace with master, but maybe I didn't understand what was just said, what Mark said.
But all this stems from the fact that the fabric is part of ONOS. Because all the features are going into the fabric.
Well, I think it's not even that, right? I think part of it on the Chord side is there's refactoring work going on, and so eCord is work.
I understand the refactoring is going on. I mean, these are all individual repos, right? So if there's a refactoring going on XOS, they can still stay on a specific commit of XOS pre-refactoring. But if the fabric app is part of ONOS and the active development is going on to the latest master, then you're stuck because you have to port these changes back either to Mysterious Decision or accept that you do something weird and dangerous addition. So the fact that the fabric app is part of ONOS is biting us over and over again. If we actually just separated that out as a separate ONOS app in Chord or somewhere else or wherever, then at least we would have that degree of freedom. Right now we don't have that degree of freedom. We're stuck with two bad decisions.
Yeah, but the problem is not only the segment routing app, because most of the work that I did is on the driver side.
But the drivers can be loaded dynamically as well. So that drivers can be part of the Fabric app or some other bundle. Okay. You can load those dynamically. It's not because, I mean, if we can't load, I know that we can load drivers dynamically into ONOS through just like an app. But I mean, this has to be supported. This has to be the process by which you do things. A network operating system that can't load drivers dynamically is not an operating system. It's just a binary.
So I think we've gone around and around on this a few times, right? And we don't have a conclusion.
No, we actually have the conclusion. We just don't have the time to do it. Well, we just have to prioritize the story.
Well, what's hard about taking the Fabric out of ONOS?
Yeah,
time. Like,
but is it staying on the other side or Chord?
So cutting, filtering out the commits that are relevant to the Fabric, extracting it out, putting it into another repo is about 2 commands, maybe 3, right?
Probably.
Yeah, and then pushing it up to a new repo is another command. It's 4.
Probably.
Okay, so.
But we have another stuff to do, right? So just prioritize this and we do it.
I'm
not saying that's a difficult
I'm not the one who runs the show. I'm just saying it doesn't take that long.
Are we staying on the ONOS side or Chord?
ONOS side. Well, I'm just saying that, like, if you wanted to take out the Fabric app, it's not such a big story. Half a day, it'll be done.
Well, I think on the ONOS side, they're also trying to get a handle on what it means when these components go out of the system, right? Because at some point, we also want to take the various other apps and maybe put them in their own repos. And so part of it was just trying to maybe take the Fabric, use it as a guinea pig, and then see what it means from a build and tool standpoint to try to integrate it into the...
We've already done this. So there are, 5 ONOS applications that live in their own repositories in Chord. And they were previously apps that were included in ONOS. So this is not new territory. This is perfectly charted. We've been there before.
But I think that some of the things, one of the reasons why we were trying to keep it on the ONOS side was because that other folks in ONOS were also using it, not just for Chord, right? So that's a different use case.
Or that's the same thing, exactly same use case. There are people using the Chord apps for another use case that were previously using the Chord apps when they were in the ONOS repository.
But
nothing's changed here. It's just communicate to the people that these apps are moving. Right? Tell them where they're moving to some people will miss that notification and come to the mailing list and say, where the hell did this thing go? And you just tell them it went there. And that's it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're making a big story out of this, out of a relatively small thing.
So maybe we add an investigation spike for what we need to do to make this happen.
I don't care what I've already done. I really don't care.
Right, but we kind of need to agree on what version of ONOS, and if we plan to have new features in Mysterious Decision and another rev of ONOS to support this. If there's discussions in Menlo, I'm not catching them.
There are no discussions.
We now have an agenda item for tomorrow's TST, which is good because I didn't have anything else.
Yeah. Please bring this up and then. Okay, so pseudo-wire integration for eCord, and it sounds like we need to figure out where that'll land. Okay, thanks, Pierre. There shouldn't be anything in Let and Write or Scalable VSG Fabric. Charles?
Okay. So for 798, so right now we found an issue when integrating server routing and vRouter in IPv6 scenario. We're right now doing control plane redirection in the routing table, and that will get the TTO of the control traffic get -1, but it won't work for IPv6 and DP traffic. So we're trying to investigate a way to do CD redirect using bridging instead of routing. That's the 798. And then we also have 704, 783. They're like pending vRouter stories for v6.
Yeah, but 704 I think is on.
Yeah, it's almost done.
And the new one is 783. This try to understand if we can learn in opportunistic way IPv6 hosts that are using the link global address that actually are they are a problem when we receive the next hop from the upstream router using the link global address. So the idea is try to learn this host in another way instead to configure this host.
Okay. For the following few, I'll let Jonah finish that later. Let's skip that to the bottom one, 635. Is about, this is actually done, so I create several new VLAN configuration in interface config that allow us to right now specify access VLAN, trunk VLAN, native VLAN. And then in port 800, we want to use that newly introduced VLAN configuration to do VLAN assignment in server routing instead of looking into the subnet. Right now we explicitly say which VLAN want to assign using access VLAN config. And 703, we want to move several hardwares from Aqua Rack to switches to idle switches to the Atrium Rack, so we can have an environment for dual homing testing. And for AO1, so I have a pending work on supporting OTP pipeline for OVS, which is kind of useful for, I think, a lot of people. Just have to finish that. And since everyone is talking about like separating Fabric out of Honest repo, I'm thinking if I should add one more story to doing that in the sprint. What do you guys think? Okay.
Minimally add a story about investigating that. This way you can scope it as a spike.
Yeah. Okay, I can add one to that. And I think the rest of the story belongs to John.
Yeah, mine are just improvements to the VRIDA apps, mainly around extending them to support multiple routers because we need that for the VRIDA control plane. That's all.
Okay, and one item for Sarah?
That one is just for testing. We recently merged a lot of IPv6 features into the master, so we want to test and see if the new features and the existing feature all work together. So this is just a testing story for Sarah.
Okay, thanks. Sujitra?
Okay, for QA, from existing core tester, we have several component-based tests. So right now, our plan is to make sure that we investigate this test, and then we want to create some configuration on the CIAP where we can launch all these core tester tests, individual component-based tests to run as part of the CIAP as a black box. So that is the investigation that we have to do with the part of this story. And based on the outcome of what we observe with this, then we will be creating more stories in the middle of the sprint, because it depends whether we have to either modify the existing core test cases in order to make sure that our purposes are met, or if some of them are already running fine, then we might have to create like new stories per Jenkins job. So we want to make them run on a continuous basis. And there are quite a amount of tests, so I think we will add them as we go through the sprint.
Okay, thanks, Suchitra. Nothing for traffic mirroring, nothing for expand service inventory. For the Fabric test on, I think we renamed this Epic, and I think there has been some scrubbing, so it should be relatively clean. Monitoring as a service. Srikanth?
Yeah. So in monitoring service for this sprint, I have added two bugs that we have been noticing in our during our development process. These are kind of intermittent issues, so it's hard to chase them, but they're causing a lot of trouble. Whoever is deploying the monitoring service. Recently, MCOD folks also encountered these type of issues. So the first one is the inside monitoring service, we spin up two virtual machines, and we expect both the virtual machines to get the two IP addresses. But in some race condition situations, one of the VM is getting only one VM instead of one IP address instead of two IP addresses. That is causing the that breaking the whole monitoring service logic. So I added a bug and assigned to Scott, since he has troubleshooted this problem earlier, and unfortunately it's resurfacing again. There is a second issue, again it's an intermittent issue where we are observing the Ansible playbook execution is failing because of some RabbitMQ user configuration inside the monitoring service. It should not be very hard to troubleshoot, but yeah, we wanted to fix that also because it's keep happening. And then the third story that I added is, now that we have a monitoring service in place, we wanted to onboard an analytics application. Here we are taking some sample auto-scaling application that we have. We wanted to see how we can onboard that analytics application that can use the data collected by the monitoring service so that we can document the whole process and can be used for the other analytics, onboarding other analytics apps. So at this moment, these are the three tickets that we are targeting in this sprint.
Okay, thanks, Srikanth. Auto configuration. So I think one of the things that we should try to target in this sprint is to go through the existing epics and start moving or removing items that should be deleted. So I know that there's some that we'll need to delete. What I've done with David is he went through and flagged the ones that he needed deleted and sent them to me. And I was able to just delete them. We currently don't have a workflow that allows you to kind of note to close them down as not fixed, right? So at this point, one thing we could do is just go through and let me know, and I can delete the ones that are no longer relevant. Let's try to do that. If we're not making headway on that, we can definitely put together a backlog scrub and go through them one by one and delete them. In general, I don't think the team is happy about doing that, but that's where we're at. Okay. eCord?
Oh, by the way, I went through and deleted, closed down a bunch of epics last week.
Okay, that's great.
So I do think we're down to just a couple left.
Well, what about this one?
That one should be deleted, it looks like. Well,
because we added a new one.
Yeah, we expanded. Yeah, that can go away. That can go away.
Okay, I'll close it. eCord?
Yes, for eCord, really two activities. One is deploy our rack once and for all. Second one, we'll be designing and implementing a new service, Virtual Ethernet Edge.
So Mark,
That's all.
This one is
Yes.
0. Does this mean there's no work?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
This story is 0 points?
Yeah, it's actually a parent task. So 422 is the parent of 424. You see it has multiple sub-issues.
Okay.
So yeah, otherwise it counts double, right? I guess.
Okay, works. No mCord integration. rCord? Scott?
Yeah, so this one was a bug that was reported to me that when you have a BSG tenant and you create a second BSG tenant on the same S tag as the first one, that connectivity on the first one is lost. So I plan on looking into that bug and seeing what the problem is.
Ali, there are no Volta stories?
No, not yet. We just got back from the lab trial at AT&T, so we haven't had time to create stories. We'll do that at some point this week.
What's the executive summary of how that went?
Super well.
Thanks.
Okay, so you don't want me to hold off starting the sprint until the end of the day? Because...
Well, I mean, it won't make a difference. I mean, most of the Volta team, actually all of the Volta team is on PTO, except me. I really should be on PTO, but I'm just so diligent and I just can't stop working.
Okay. So I think we're done. If anyone has any questions, comments, or dependencies, please let the team know. Otherwise, I'll probably start the sprint at about 4-ish today after the ONOS planning meeting. Okay? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, guys.